So I'm sure by now many of you have heard of Konami remastering Zone of the Enders Second Runner in 4K with PlayStation VR support. And while today's video will not be discussing that remaster directly, I would like to talk about Konami and Silent Hill. Before I get into that, however, I do want to acknowledge that this is Konami, so if they were to hypothetically do anything that I discuss in this video, it would be out of desperation and not some genuine desire to bring a superior experience to some of the most iconic horror games. Anyway, I digress. Let's get into today's topic. With Silent Hills being dead, I feel like Konami would try to win fans over by bringing a remake or remaster of sorts in a similar fashion to Zone of the Enders Second Runner, focusing mostly on 4K resolution and optional VR support. This then, however, boils down to which game or games they would focus on or specifically go to as far as these remakes or remasters are concerned. Of course, one would hope that they would avoid anything that Tom Hewlett had touched with a 10-foot pole, so obviously that's out of the question. Now, anything that Team Silent had worked on, well, people might be cautiously curious, especially if they were to perhaps work on a word-for-word remake of the original Silent Hill game, considering that it was a PlayStation 1 title. So it could be something that's not only good for newcomers to experience, but also fans who are rightfully upset about what happened with Silent Hills. Thinking about it now, it would be interesting to see how the game would look like in the Fox engine, and then on top of that, an optional VR support would be interesting to see because it would be very different from what the original game had played like if there was a first-person mode that was optional, of course. Although this is just wishful thinking on my end, I just don't think that Konami would even go above and beyond for something like Silent Hill 1. Then there's also Silent Hill 2 and 3. There's the risk of them basing the remasters of those games on the HD collection, and as mentioned earlier, one would hope that they would avoid anything that was touched by Tom Hewlett with a 10-foot pole. They could base the remasters off the original PS2 ports, which would be nice if there were some sort of alternative to play these games without having to resort to original hardware or the Tom Hewlett collection. However, there is another option, but I think it's an even more unlikely one at best, and that is a fully fledged remake for both titles. Sadly, I think the most likely scenario would be Konami just sticking with a 4K remaster that has optional VR support, just to go for the cheapest route possible. Lastly, the only game not to have been remastered that was developed by Team Silent Hill 4, is a likely candidate or potential candidate for a 4K VR supported remaster. And while my knowledge on the franchise is very limited as a whole, I am very well aware of the fact that Silent Hill 4 has some first person segments, so I can see how that would be a little bit easier to do some VR supported segments or just making that game with VR support in mind. 4 games with the potential of being remastered or remade, but would Konami actually go through with something like that? Well, it's pretty hard to say now, and there's always the possibility that they'd only touch Silent Hill and other dormant franchises for pachinko machines and mobile games. However, on the other hand, as mentioned before, they could try to win fans back for what happened with Silent Hills, and I should also note that this could be stacked on top of the fact that there was a Silent Hill 2 pachinko machine after Silent Hills was cancelled, which obviously left a sour taste in the mouths of fans. It's hard for me to say if this will indeed happen in the future, but I can see the potential of it happening. Maybe if this is solely based on the success of Zone of the Enders Second Runner Anubis Mars, the 4K VR supported remaster for Second Runner, I can see there being potential for there to be remakes or remasters of the Silent Hill games or other franchises within Konami's belt. If it were to happen, I'd be cautiously curious just to see what would happen with these remasters of Silent Hill games, although if I were to even try these out, I think I would just rent or buy used because I just don't want to give Konami my money. I think Konami would have to do a lot more than just remaster some classic games in order to get me interested in their products ever again. That all said, I'd like to know what you all think. Do you all think that Konami would try to remake Silent Hill games just to win fans back? Or do you think that Silent Hill is just doomed to be a pachinko machine forever? Let me know down in the comments below, and I will see you all in the next one.